Back in 2014, I was standing knee-deep in mud, digging in the grounds in one of the villages in Tacloban in the Philippines. It was just 9 months after the devastating Typhoon Haiyan. We were there to learn about placemaking in a completely unknown context, and the challenges of designing when everything is foreign and different. We went there thinking that we were going to build houses. Instead, we ended up on, among other things, drawing huge maps together with the people living there to illustrate the challenges and how their community worked and the changes in the area. As a designer, I tried to understand how your life might be as a person, as a part of a neighborhood, as a citizen in your city. Seeing things from your perspective, still having sustainable development in mind. Let's say this fellow here is you. I'm trying to understand how you live your life, how you get to work, what kind of challenges you have juggling picking kids up after school or reaching that deadline at work. Your life may be affected by where you live and the neighborhood you live in. And I want you all right now to imagine what you think is a good neighborhood. So maybe you will tell me about the safe places where your children can play. And you are describing the behaviors you would like to have in your neighbors, like someone there to be a helping hand. And you in the middle might tell me something completely else. My point is, this is not just about your needs anymore. This is about the needs of a community as well. Like how a neighborhood should have playgrounds, even though you might not have kids. Your neighborhood is part of a district. And if you're from the city of Trondheim, you may have heard that our politicians have decided that the area of Sluppen is to become a climate-neutral district. For the next 2 years, a new master plan is being developed. There's visions of sustainable housing areas and new mobility solutions. We're talking about needs and priorities on a district level here, and even further, the needs of the city and the region. On top of that, Trondheim just got funded for an EU project developing positive energy blocks and districts in this area. That's buildings and areas that will store and produce more energy than they use. This project is tech-heavy, it's hard to grasp, and I would say almost impossible to implement and upscale unless we find ways of connecting this to the way we develop, plan, and communicate our city. In addition to the city's needs, this is also about the needs for solutions that can tackle our global challenges as well. Being called Positive City Exchange. This project is all about the exchange of energy. But it's also about the exchange of other resources, like knowledge and ideas. And this is where I find it interesting. Because we tend to think that technology in urban development equals something like this. And all the human-centered designers will just shake their heads and close their eyes. And I mean, it looks a little bit like upscale cell phones, right? There is some truth in this. But this is what urban areas will look like if the engineers alone are to design also the looks of them, not just the technology. Technology is way too important to leave to the engineers alone. This summer, I talked to hundreds of school children about the same theme, and if you ask youth about this is not an adequate picture. They told me about their ideas of the future city of Trondheim. And they talked about organic houses and sustainable solutions. They're smart. But they also talked about nature and the ocean and places to meet in the city for adults and kids alike. And when we asked them what a good city should look like, they showed us pictures like this and this, regardless of any technology infrastructure. Most designers spend their expertise on designing smaller objects with understandable user needs. User needs in city development, on the other hand, that's hard to grasp. It's all these different perspectives and opinions about what a good district might be, and different ways of living. Way too often, we are designing areas and districts that people don't really want to live in. That's why we need you and your interaction to develop them. This is nothing new. The EU knows this. And that's why 1/3 of the Positive City Exchange project is all about you guys. The vision is how to co-create and accelerate the city we would like to live in. It's aiming quite high. And in short, that means that we are to develop demonstrations locally, focusing on citizen involvement and participation, connecting technology, and the use of open data with participational design. And we promised the EU in Trondheim that we're going to do this, so we kind of need to make it work. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we all need to agree upon before we're able to actually do this. Number 1, developing our cities is everyone's business. That means that you, as a citizen, you need to engage. And most importantly, you need to be able to join in. And that's why one of our demonstrations are targeting the challenges from a citizen perspective. Okay, so let's say your grandmother is knitting you a sweater without asking you first. Kind of like this. And she might think this looks really nice, but there's a pretty good chance that you won't be wearing it so often because you didn't pick it out. But if you were to sit down with her, choosing the patterns and colors, you might have yourself a new favorite sweater. Designing good neighborhoods and urban spaces should never be like ready-to-wear fashion. It's always handcrafted. It's always dependent on the context. You need to help grandma pick the sweaters you want. Okay, number 2. Developing our cities is everyone's business, meaning that the public officials and the planners need to stop being afraid of what people say and want. Demonstration project number 2 is targeting the urban authorities' perspective. Because it seems to me that when people are talking about how participation is done, it's like someone is taking out a box, putting the people into it, putting it to the side to store for when needed. I mean, come on, it's like we're trying to maintain complete control over something that we should just observe and listen to and draw inspiration from, the people. With the university and the technology development here, Trondheim is actually an excellent place for developing demonstration projects on energy solutions and mobility. We're really good at this. And it might be hard to see the connection to the citizen participation. But we cannot make those projects work without finding good ways and better tools to connecting them to the way we look at placemaking, develop our areas, and include the citizen needs. Because if I were to talk to people living in the areas we were talking about, they would never care which sector in the public organization I were from. Whether they were telling me about the kindergarten that's just closed down or the bad public transportation system, the focus is on their areas and their needs. Number 3, developing our cities is everyone's business, meaning that we need to build even better bridges between the different communities and organizations locally in order to reach out, support development, and the prototyping of new solutions in our own cities. That's demonstration number 3. Because one thing we figured out was that while the innovation ecosystem in Trondheim is quite good, we need to connect that better to the way we do citizen involvement in general. Innovation should not just be for the so-called innovation community. Entrepreneurial strategies and citizen involvement might actually have a lot of the same goals. Reaching out to those who would like to make a difference. So, I mean, we live in a small town. It's Trondheim, but we have the largest university in Norway. It's 40,000 students. Your neighbor might as well be a computer scientist. If we are to look at the university and the students as such a big resource, why not have the same mindset when we are involving neighborhoods? There's not one universal model to do this. We need to work on it from a range of different perspectives in order to find new ways of developing things together as a community, face-to-face, and through digital tools. Because tools, just like this pencil, with this I can draw. But to create, I need to practice and learn how to make beautiful things with it. Technology will never be anything else than great tools. Tools that need people and creators to create beautiful solutions. And whether it's in a village in the Philippines or in the city of Trondheim, solutions need to be based on a solid understanding of the local context and the people living there. The Positive City Exchange project gives us the opportunity to test this way of thinking, uniting the technical, the personal, and the continuing co-creation process. Because we cannot hand you or anyone else in the world the ready-made solutions, the sustainable cities that's a one-size-fits-all. That's not sustainable at all. We need you and your interaction to do this, because that's intelligent design. That's sustainable growth. That's a smart city.